Okay, RPG rules, talking about configuring the big game now from a very high level. This is the video you want to watch when you're about to start making your own game, and you think all the big questions: what stats do I want characters to have, what damage types are going to be in my game, and so on and so on. And we're going to have a look here at character stats. So the game configuration for a project is stored in two places. In Assets, RPG Rules, Resources, we have this one object called RPGSettings. There should only be one of them. It always has to have this particular name because the code looks for that by name. And it's a big list of settings of how the game is put together. And we'll go through the character stat part of it. So what we can see here in Universe Gun, what I've set up, is all stats have a base value of 10. That's fairly standard in RPGs, dating back to D&D where everything was 3d6. We have diminishing returns. After stat hits 75, it's only a quarter as good at increasing points for things. And each stat has a number of modifiers on it. So we've got, what have we got here? Strength, Con, Dexterity, Intelligence, Endurance, Recovery, Ego, and Charisma. Strength, if we look at that, has two modifiers. Every point above 10 gives you plus 1% melee damage. Every point above 10 also gives you plus 1 to heavy lifting. So you hit harder, and you can pick up big objects if you're strong. Constitution does not apply diminishing returns, and increases your max health by 1 for every point above 10. Makes sense. Dexterity increases your critical chance by half a point for every point in dex above 10, and does apply diminishing returns, and so on and so on. I'll just cover diminishing returns quickly. So that's something that some games use, DR, diminishing returns, to stop people putting all their points into one stat, to make them spread it around. Once you've invested in your strength up to level 75, it's saying you're not going to get 1 point of melee damage and heavy lifting, you're only going to get a quarter of a point for each thing from then on. It gets harder to boost your abilities through cranking your strength up, and maybe you should go and put points in something else. I'm not a huge fan of it. If you don't want to have it at all, crank that up to 1 and it has no effect whatsoever. You keep getting 1 point per point for everything. I'll just undo that there. Okay, so we have these 8 stats here. Where have these 8 names come from? The answer is, in RPG Rules Scripts, we have a file called Custom Enon. Let's have a look at it in Visual Studio. So an enum is a coding term, custom enum, short for enumeration, where it's basically a list of names for something. Like here we have an enum for character stats, and we've listed strength, con, dexterity, and endurance, recovery, ego, and charisma. And if I have a look at what strength does with the code here, we can go find all references to that strength variable. There aren't any. Strength by itself does nothing, it just exists. And then here in the data, in the RPG settings object, we're saying, right, strength is going to increase melee damage and heavy lifting. You're going to hit harder and be able to pick things up if this thing called strength is bigger. So we can actually go in and edit this code here to make new character stats or remove ones we don't want, and the system is going to cope just fine with that. Now, this is code, and that will strike fear into some of your hearts already, I know. You have to be careful when you're editing here that everything's syntactically correct. If you make an error, the game won't run at all. So do have a backup just in case you make a mistake, so you can put the old version of the file back. To edit an enum, what you want to do is basically just make a new line, type in the name of the new stat you want. We're going to make one called luck here and put a comma at the end, so it looks like all the others. Make sure you don't, for example, get rid of that bracket or wait for it. Everything. Yeah, we've got a little red error there saying a bracket's expected. And if we try to run in Unity, it's full of errors now. And you know, this happens. So yeah, do sort of go about this carefully and conscientiously, because you're dealing with live code here, but this file is designed to be edited. It's just a set of simple lists like this. So we've added luck here. Let's go back to, did I save that? Yep. Go back to Unity, and lo and behold, luck has appeared here thanks to a little bit of editor magic. Okay, what's luck going to do? We'll get luck to do two things for us. Every point of luck increases your accuracy by 1% because you get lucky shots in, and you're a little bit harder to hit. We'll say you get half a point of defense against all damage types. This is very much like setting up a buff. It's basically a scaling buff that will apply to your characters based on their character stats. So we've set up luck there now. All good. And we can go and have a look at a character now. So we'll go to RPG Rules, Universe Gun, Characters, Stargirl 3000. And if we select her and have a look at her character, oh, she's got luck now. It's just copied the previous value. This is actually just an array inside. A little bit of editor magic making these names appear again. Let's say she's an unlucky character with only a luck of 5 instead of the base value of 10. If we now go in game and take her into the lab for training, let's switch to Stargirl, get rid of that exit sign, come on, that's it, and go training. You can see that luck's appeared now. I'll just maximize that. Yep, 5%, minus 5 to accuracy, minus 2% to defense. I need to remove those plus signs there. And it'll be your job, if you want to have more stats, to reformat this to make this prefab a little bit narrower so that 9 of them fit into this box, or whatever you want to do with the UI. But yeah. So all we've done there, we've added 1 to the enumeration, we've set up what luck does, and our characters automatically kind of grow luck at that point. And you can pump points into luck. We've got 2 stat points. I'm sick of being this unlucky, you know, where you can put some points in there and it gets a little bit better. Yeah. So that is how the character stats work. So where do they get used? Let's talk about balancing them and the decisions you might want to make here. If we go back to our RPG settings object, each of these, you know, has a sort of a buff. Like strength does melee damage and heavy lifting, con gives you more health points, dex gives you a better critical chance, and so on. Charisma, for example, currently gives you defense against paranormal attacks. You're harder to hit with sonics, magic, and negative. I'll put something better in there when I've made a persuasion conversation system, perhaps, or, you know, have it do get you cheaper things in the shops or something. But you may want to think, you know, are each of these balanced? And you can sort of tell if they're balanced by having a look at the stat bonuses you're giving out. You know, like maybe strength's a bit overpowered because we've got 2 things giving you 1% bonuses there. And so on, you know, whereas ego just gives you ranged damage bonus, but no heavy lifting. You know, apart from being a ranged character, why would I choose strength over ego for my points? And so on. So there are other places where these are used. Let's see, if we have a look at RPG rules, power sets, Earth control. Earth control, we have an Earth prison buff, where you get encased in solid rock, and you can't move. There's a struggle system. Each status effect can be, you can free yourself by struggling, by hammering the keyboard basically, and strength will improve your ability to get out of Earth Prison. Same as if we have a look at in telepathy, I think. Sonic stab, what have we got? Sonic hold. Mind control. Well, let's set it up like that. Sonic hold is struggleable with ego, perhaps, or intelligence, or charisma. The higher you have that stat, the easier it is to get out of holds. So you may want to set up some rules for your data. Saying, you know, strength will always free you from physical holds more quickly. You know, if you encase the Hulk in rock, it's not going to hold him as long as it is a normal person. If you've got someone with a really powerful ego, they're going to burst out of a sonic hold more easily, and so on. There's that. You can do things like, you might, you know, a common one in games is that strength or dex or int or whatever are requisites for using certain pieces of equipment. To carry a tower shield, you need a strength of 60. To hold a two-handed sword, you need a high strength. To fire a really good bow and arrow, you need a high dex, and so on. So they may have bonuses like that. You can also put them in to, you know, interactables could have, you can only interact with this object if you have a high enough strength. If it's like a door you have to lift up from the bottom, or, you know, bend some bars open, you need a high strength. Maybe have a computer where you need a high intelligence to operate it, or something. So yeah, that's sort of use of those character stats outside of those buffs which we set up in the RPG settings array. And you'll want to give that a think as well. But yeah, so to recap what we've got there, you set up which stats you want just as in this Enon here by name. The characters will automatically grow them in their list, and you can fill in their base values. It'll automatically save them out to the save data as you level up and put stat points in, and you specify in here what each particular stat does, the kind of the buff it confers, and whether or not it obeys diminishing returns. This base stat value is basically just there. I could have made it that everyone has a stat of 0 to begin with, and you know, if you've got 5 strength, that means you're 5 stronger than normal. But role-playing game conventions say otherwise. And you know, 10 is nearly always the default in the games I've played. Yeah, so that is how to modify character stats.